And that's the bottom line.
You want a war? You're gonna get one.
The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Now you wanna get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
It's time to officially kick off the 2025 UFL season. And how do I know? Because I finally brought one of our co-hosts on that, hell, we don't even know where he's at for most of the year. But when it's UFL season, he shows up. And here he is, Mike Palco. How you doing, man?
Good, everybody. Hey, happy to be here. You know, it's spring has sprung for a lot of us here. So yeah, for where I've been, so for those who don't know, I do coach college football. I'm at Saginaw Valley State University. So we're in the GLIAC, so the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference in Division II. So Division II powerhouse conference. A lot of excitement. So a lot of opportunities. So I tell guys too, like, hey, being at the next level is more accessible than ever before. So all the guys are really looking forward to see how far they can take their football careers. So with the UFL, so every single day I think about the UFL because that just means that there's a door open for somebody to keep playing pro football. So as long as I'm around, I'm going to do whatever I can to help the UFL grow in any capacity. So looking forward to getting more fans come and watch the product. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Good evening to everybody out there. Thanks for joining. I see a lot of familiar names popping up. Mike evidently didn't get the memo because we're kicking off the season discussing the Memphis Showboats and the Houston Roughnecks, and he shows up with a Michigan Panther flag behind him. So I don't know.
Always. It doesn't move.
So before we get talking about Memphis, we're going to kick things right in here. We're going to start off with Memphis. And we went hunting for who would be a good super fan to bring on for Memphis. And we had a couple super fans running neck and neck. And we had one that had to bow out on us a couple nights ago. So we're only going to bring on one, but he packs a punch. So let's bring Brett on first.
Hey, what's up, fellas?
So we're going to bring on the super fan from Memphis. I'm sure all the Memphis fans are going to know who we're talking about. He played defensive end in 1990 for your North Texas State football team. he may have he had a very short-lived career, but he looked like a football player. I'm going to give him that much. Let's welcome to the show Jeremy Elkins. How you doing, man?
What's up, guys?
Hey.
Hey.
How's it going, man? The boatsman.
The boatsman is here.
So we've already seen a few that recognize you. So let's talk a little bit first about, last year we had the opportunity of, I made the trip down to Memphis for the meet and greet at the Wiseacre Brewing Company. And our other super fan that I've got on when we start talking about Houston was also at that event, so he knows what I'm talking about. But at that point in time, we were pretty excited about Coach Flip as the head coach of Memphis, and the season just didn't pan out, and ended up with a 2-8 record, 8 losses sandwiched between week 1 and week 10 were the only wins. But, as we'll talk about with Houston, kind of a difference in philosophy as far as replacing the head coach or bringing him back. So what are your thoughts, Jeremy, on the decision? Well, first talk a little bit about the 2024 season. We don't want to spend too much time on that because we want to look forward, but kind of talk a little bit about Coach Flip and last season and what your thoughts are on bringing in a new head coach.
Well, Flip was he's a great guy. So it's always kind of, you feel tough trying to critique him in such a brutal manner, but it was a brutal season. My biggest thing was there just was never an offensive line. The going joke was we called it the no line. And nobody's going to, Tom Brady couldn't have gotten anything accomplished behind that line. They couldn't do anything. As far as this season, when we kept waiting to see who was going to be a head coach, I was thrilled because we got a double punch at the same time. They announced them kind of right together. Here's your GM. Here's your head coach. So when I saw Jim Manos was on there, being that I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, I was thrilled with that. This guy, he was relatively responsible for bringing in players like Sammy Watkins and Matt Milano. And I wouldn't doubt he even had a hand in scouting Josh Allen. But he left right there before Josh's first season. But, having Jim there and getting to talk to him, he's serious about building a good team. And the fact that Wisenhunt wasn't recruited, Wisenhunt called up Moose and told him, I want to coach Memphis. That kind of commitment just makes you feel a lot better about what's happening, what we're going into. I tell people all the time, we're going into uncharted waters now. It's completely different. It's a whole different team. Last year, though, at that event that you were at, Ed, at Wiseacre, everything seemed so promising and looked good. And I've told people that, it's an old saying that I used to hear from coaches, and just in any sport, they'd always say, I know the team looks good on paper, but they don't play on paper. They play on turf. Hockey teams play on ice. The basketball team plays on a court. It doesn't matter how they look. It's how they produce. And it just didn't produce. And for the life of me, it wasn't just offense. It was defense as well. But everything, it was like a house of cards. It fell apart very badly. And I feel bad for Houston because that was our only wins was against Houston, both in Houston and in here in the last game of the season. And I thought, man, that you can lift your head up and say, well, at least we weren't Houston, but I got friends in Houston. I feel bad for them. I know that's got to be aggravating. And they do seem to be taking a different approach, new GM, but same coach. So I'm not sure what direction they're going, what route they're wanting to take. But I can tell you right now, the route that the boats are taking, they're getting ready to weigh anchor and get at it. So I like it.
So just a quick background on Coach Wisenhunt. For those who may not know, he spent 8 years in the NFL as a player. Started his coaching career in 1995. He spent 5 years with Arizona, and that happened to be during the Kurt Warner days. played his final. He had head coached his final 2 years with the Tennessee Titans. That was sandwiched between being offensive coordinator for the Steelers on one end and the Los Angeles Chargers on the other end, depending on when that falls. But he kind of had a misleading head coaching career. He started off 44-40, so he was above 500. But he really fell on hard times after towards the end of Arizona and with Tennessee, and he ended up finishing his head coaching career 4-31 down the stretch. So his overall record 48-71 as a head coach. But when I first heard about it, I was pretty excited that he was coming in. Brett, what do you think?
I think it's a home run hire for Memphis. I really like it. Again, we favored Memphis and DeFlippo last year. If you remember preseason, we had Memphis, knocking on Birmingham's door and giving them problems in the USFL conference last year. We were caught slipping on that deal. Michigan was very impressive. Our very own Palco called that. And I'm with Jeremy. What I noticed from the jump with Memphis is the tackles were dreadful. Not to pick on the guy, but the tackles were real bad. Cookus was seeing ghost by game 3. The defense, even you could tell at times after 2 or 3 drives, starting about game 3, the Memphis defense would just lay down because 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out in the offense, and the defense. I'm a Chicago Bears fan. I've seen it before. The defense just says, "What are we doing out here? We need some help on the other side of the ball." But I think Wisenhunt's a home run hire. Their GM I really like, and I tell you what, they've made some good offseason moves this year, and I think Memphis is trending in the right direction.
So, Mike, what do you think? I mean, being a USFL fan like you are, you got to see Memphis play twice last year. We all know, of course, they led the league in giving up sacks. I mean, 39 sacks that led the lead by almost 10. So, I mean, it doesn't take rocket science to find out, to figure out what their issues were as a team. But what are your thoughts going into this season with Coach Wiz?
Well, first things first. So with me, I had with me as a former Philadelphia Star staff member, I had some I had rooting interest for the Showboats to succeed with Case Cookus back there at quarterback, and it was tough to watch. All them hits. Because me knowing working with Case Cookus, a great guy. Players love being around him, and seeing him take the beating that he did, it was really tough to watch. He's doing everything he can. He's one that would still sit in the pocket to deliver the football for as long as he can. But, when he does that, especially last season, taking the big hits that he did, and, it wasn't pretty to watch. But if there's any correlation with what Michigan's gone through with, Jeff Fisher leaving, and then when that spot was open, Mike Nolan called Moose Johnson and said, "Hey, I'm interested in that open Michigan job." So if there's any correlation to where, hey, a head coach reaching out to Moose saying, "Hey, I'm interested in coaching this place here, the Memphis Showboats." So if there's anything to really put anything in a positive spin. So if that's a sign where you may have some success coming in Memphis, I think that's a great sign for all the fans out there. So hopefully everybody's excited for a quick turnaround. We talk about the roster overhaul, things that they're doing over there. So lots to look forward to, because again, when you're in the bottom of the conference after a rough go, or near the bottom of the league, all you can go is up. So with something like this taking place, I think it's got to be exciting times in Memphis.
So as a super fan, Jeremy, of the Memphis Showboats, heading into 2025, what's your short list of musts? What has to happen with the Memphis team? You got a roster right now 64, but there's only 16 players that were on the active roster at the end of last season. So obviously, Coach Wisenhunt is coming in with a certain philosophy in mind, and he's trying to change the team accordingly. What do you view as musts that Memphis needs to do in 2025 to make this season a success?
Like I said, that no line has to go. That's going to be the first thing people are going to watch. The first possession that we're going to be on offense, they're going to be watching that offensive line. And the fact that we discussed pre-show, I told you, that Coach Turner's back as the offensive line coach. Bit of a shocker, actually, to some fans because the burden is really going to be on him. I got to give him props. I'm assuming that he's got a chip on his shoulder to prove to everybody that wasn't him last year. That was the line, as well as any returning linemen that are coming back from that offensive line. They got a lot to prove if they even make it to the season. I wouldn't be surprised if a few of them don't make the roster, but that's basing everything off of last year. These guys, chemistry does play into it big time. And I could see it on the defensive end last year. I'm not going to name names, but I could see the ones that are back this season. I remember watching their faces. They looked like they could just clobber their own teammates. They were so mad. They were just upset with the lack of effort, lack of production. And I wasn't a fly on the wall, so I don't know what was going on in the locker room, but there was just no chemistry. So things that I do want to see is I want to see an offensive line that actually blocks, that stops that rush. On top of that, the other things like David Davis, I really hope that he returns at the same strength he was at how season ended last year. He looks so good. I mean, if he gets past the cornerback, he's a cruise missile. They're never going to catch him. But you got to have time to be able to get it out there to him. So with an O-line blocking, that would be nice. I get worried, like I said, the reason I brought up Daywood is because he suffered that injury with the Carolina Panthers in the offseason there, because he'd gotten signed with them, but then he got cut because of the injury. I'm hoping he comes back full strength because he's got every bit the potential to go right back to the NFL. It's just got to stay away from the injuries. The defense definitely needs to be shored up a little bit more, but more than the defense, that offense has got to be able to stay on the field. And if they can't stay on the field, I don't know what kind of defense we could have. They're going to have to be the ultimate defense because they got to get the ball right back. And I don't know if that's going to be possible when you got a stained glass offensive line that just shatters. I mean, they have got to block this season. And so, like I said, uncharted waters, we're going to see. I mean, we're very optimistic. We're looking forward to the season. But, at the same time, I can also be a little bit too critical at times. And so we'll see. Right now, no point in even making any guesses or assumptions because season hasn't started yet. We'll see how it goes after the first weekend.
So, Brett, recently Memphis traded for Quentin Dormady. What do you see what do you see him providing Memphis that can get them to the next step, provided he can get protection?
He's pretty he's a lot more mobile than people give him credit for. He played his college ball at Tennessee, played with the Orlando Guardians, had some good moments there. Had some good moments in San Antonio with the Brahmas as well. I think it was a good move on Memphis's part. Again, to touch back on what Mike said, I followed Cookus in Philadelphia with the Stars. He took them to the original USFL championship game against Birmingham, and they had a shot to knock off Birmingham until his leg was broke late in that game. Cookus took an absolute beating, in the USFL and then again with the UFL in Memphis last year. But Dormady, if again, this Jeremy, it's no secret their line was bad last year. It was really bad, and the last 2 or 3 games, their quarterbacks were just as soon as they got the ball, they were slinging a hot route or trying to because they just had no time. But Dormady, I think, it might be a little bit higher ceiling than Cookus, depending on that offensive line. But I do expect Memphis to be drastically improved from last season.
So do you, Jeremy, recognize the King? We got someone in the comment line that goes by the King saying the boats are ready to rock the dock.
I don't think Jeremy can see the name.
I do want to add one thing though with the quarterback room in
See,
Memphis
and I
here.
can't hear
So
anybody. Well, there we go. Wait a minute. Is everybody coming back? On
Yeah.
my end, I may be having technical difficulties. I can see Brett, but I don't see Ed. And don't see Palco.
We're here.
We're
There we go.
here, so
Everybody.
we
what I
can
do
hear
want to
you. So
what I do want to add about the quarterback room with the late addition of EJ Perry, you have Troy Williams and you have EJ Perry. Those are those two starting quarterbacks from the USFL North Division Championship from a few years ago. So you have
Yep.
those guys on your roster too, and watching, being at the Michigan Panther games and watching EJ Perry play, and when that was his shining moment in that North Championship game, where he threw over 340 some yards in that game. So you have a guy in EJ Perry that can, he knows when, he's pocket collapse and he's going to run and he'll get you some yards. So I think you got some pieces there. Maybe you can get a little more time before the offensive line establishes itself, and then especially early in the season, those are always tough. How do you evaluate the games, and then maybe where you can maybe steal a couple wins too. So every game's going to matter, especially very early. You want to win early, I think, in this league, and I think you got a competitive quarterback room that's going to be exciting to see who comes out on top of that battle.
Yeah, I think that's going to definitely be between Perry and Dormany on who's going to end up starting those, for Memphis, and they might just kind of do what Skip does every year in Birmingham, just split the snaps with them the first game or two, and just see who wins it on the field.
That's quite possible that could happen. Yeah, I mean, because Dormady is the one that I've actually got in my mindset. He's going to be the starter. But when you've got somebody as mobile as Perry is, and definitely Williams, the quarterback room looks, I think, way stronger than it did this time last year, and they all thought it was a great one last year.
So let's do this. I know that this year it's important. It's very important this year that we get butts in the seats. So I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to play just a short 30-second video on Memphis. And when we come back, I want to get into a little bit of the grassroots of growing your fan base. We will be right back.
We love the moments, the memories, the magic, the game. So let's get more action. Oh my God. More celebration. More unforgettable. More football. More of what you love.
It's no secret there's going to be a real push this year. Even though Fox was all about viewership and they made no bones about that in the beginning, if we really want to bring this full circle and make things a success, I know that the Houston Superfan we're bringing on here before long, I'm still not going to give up the name, but he's been working with Fuel on getting some flyers made that can be printed out and posted, trying to entice ticket sales, which we all know has to happen. As far as Memphis goes, we know with the renovation of their stadium, there's a lot of room for improvement as far as attendance goes. What are some of the things that you super fans have been doing in Memphis to try and spur interest within the city?
Yeah, it's been boots on the ground here. The front office, I know that they're busy doing another aspect of it. So our aspect has been going out to businesses. Where I live locally in Arlington, Tennessee, it's one of the outlying areas of Memphis. Businesses that have just opened up out here, going to be having their grand openings and all that. They've been pushing, getting the Showboats to go there, and they're going to be there, to hand out swag and talk ticket sales and all that with the fans. Places like that are just a little bit off the beaten path for your average football fan, although you never know, it might be the beaten path. Who knows? But there, in places like Wingstop, many of us are trying to avoid places like the sports bars and everything. I mean, we got a few people in those, but the yacht club in particular, every one of us is out talking to individual different businesses, Whataburger, has been on the topic here lately, and orthopedic place, I believe. Another one, they're talking about the staff there wanting to get in on a group, a bunch of tickets and get maybe a luxury box at a game. I'm hearing everything. So that's basically all we can do as the fans, the super fans, all that is just get out there and talk to those that are, if they even happen to just mention, Showboats and just a question, we won't stop. We won't shut up. We'll just talk and everything, we try to promote them as best we can. We've got members of the yacht club handing out swag that they purchased online to hand out to fans. Even myself, the parents showing up with their kids to the games, they always want to get pictures with me. So I got stickers for them. Bill Alexander, the captain, he's got, so much swag. So it's just, we're doing all we can to entice people. The tailgating is a blast. We always make sure to tell people that you're going to come to the game, go ahead and show up a little bit early, come over, hang out with us in the gold lot. You won't regret it. You're going to have a blast. And so, that's all we can do, because the situation, the first year when it was still the USFL only, the attendance wasn't half bad at that. But you have that late merger and how it messed up scheduling and everything. Then you go into an atrocious season. I get a lot of people jump on Memphis and say they're nothing but a bunch of fair weathers. Well, I hate to break the news to many people, but I've seen a lot of fair weather fans in a lot of towns. And if your team is sucking, they're not going to waste their time coming out for it. So that makes it very difficult. The market here is set. I watch people all the time here walking around in Raiders hats, Titans hats, Rams, Bengals, Bills, Patriots, you name it. And I'm like, when's the last time you seen one of those guys play, in person? You haven't, unless you've gone up to Nashville. So come on out and watch them play in a Showboats uniform. There's guys that are going to get back to the NFL. And if you're not going to go to see the Showboats, come to see the Panthers play them. Come to see the Stallions play them, because I guarantee you there's guys on those teams that are also going to get their chance back at the NFL. It's not, the UFL is not lame. It is some very highlight-worthy football. You can see they have no problem putting together these ads that just make it look like NFL level. And I tell people, it's not far from the NFL level. It's these guys got a bad shake in training camp. They just pulled the shortest straw and things didn't work out. Somebody else outperformed them. That doesn't mean they're not worthy of NFL, roster pay. So they're going to get back. They just got to have the UFL to be their platform to be able to do it. So it also too, this whole thing, it's all in its infancy. I don't care about the USFL, the 80s, the XFL, the early 2000s. I don't care about XFL, 3.0. I don't care about the last one right before the merger. I don't care about the USFL that just came out in 22. The UFL is in its infancy, and no business just pops overnight. It's going to take time to grow this. And I tell people, it's only going to get better, but you have to come out and support it.
Right. And I wanted to address Brock too, because he brings up a point where he basically says that growing the fan base is not on the fans' shoulders. Well, I have to disagree with that. And, it's not rocket science to go back to 2020 and know what's been lacking in the XFL, USFL, UFL altogether. It's been a lack of marketing, but you know what? Us as fans, if we want spring football to stay around, we got to do what we can to make sure it succeeds.
Yeah,
so,
we're not one to sit on our hands.
We need to put butts in the seats. That's got to be our job. If they're not going to do the marketing that they need to do, then we need to do, what KJ's doing, put those flyers out there with the QR codes, trying to entice people to buy tickets. It's up to the super fans. The super fans want to be at the games and they want to be recognized. Well, there's something that comes with that too. They have to do their part as well, getting into the community and stirring up the fan base. So, as much as we agree, sometimes we can disagree. That doesn't mean either one of us are wrong. So
Yeah. Well, Ed, I've got to jump in on this subject because I'm a 3-year season ticket holder with Birmingham. First 2 years we had suites, and I would invite every fan I could to up to our suite. From the Birmingham Stallions uh, Facebook group that we started. It's not our. I agree with Brock or Boomer. It's not our place, but we need to take accountability and make it our place because, like Jeremy said, every kitty, every piggy bank has got an end to it. And I love how the UFL and Fox and Redbird has got everything budgeted a year or two in advance. XFL 2020 to me, was the GOAT, was an absolute GOAT. But they spent a lot of money to get it to that point, and I think they were going to lose a lot of money after that year one promoting that league the way they did, and COVID shut it down. I still think to this day, if it wasn't for COVID, I think the XFL would still be here. And, that's when Fox fell in love with spring football, and they were actually the other bidder trying to bid on the XFL. And when they came up short to Danny and Dwayne and Redbird, that's when they started this. They had the 1 year, the trial run with the spring league, and then they started the USFL back. Everywhere I go, I wear UFL or spring football gear everywhere. If I'm not at work or if I'm at work, I've got a T-shirt under it, and I go to a restaurant or a bar that night, and I pop my UFL hat on, and I've got everywhere I go, and we do need to continue to every time I run into somebody now, you get a lot of giddy ups or yeah, I'll watch that, or you see so many more people out now that's familiar with it. And again, Jeremy is correct; it's in its infancy. I've seen so many more people on social media, on Bleacher Report and NFL memes and there talking UFL, that they're excited about the season and they're going to watch. So there are signs. I think the ratings are going to be very impressive this year, but it's still going to take a little bit more effort with this late start trying to get butts and seats.
And to kind of go off that too, so I think too with the fan base, we're not just like, for me to like to take initiative, hey, we want this thing to succeed because, I'm the fan, or, what the UFL, I have a bias, because I've worked in, all that stuff, in the USFL. But when I watch the UFL and USFL spring football and then watch the NFL, when I watch the NFL, I'm like, like it feels like when we had Coach Chuck Long, the purest form of football we have. And this is, and I can't disagree by any stretch because he's right. This is a fantastic football. It's like if you're if you wish like, oh, I wish football is like how it used to be. Well, this is probably the closest thing to how football used to be because you don't see a ton of flags like you do in the NFL. Like they actually like let them play out here because they know that, hey, these guys want to get to the league. Even though Moose Johnson, he said too that they want to kind of steer away from being a NFL developmental league and be as pro football that's played in the spring. So to that note too, with the best thing fans can do, I think if you want the absolute minimum, share the social media posts that either from the bottom line, the UFL page, just at least share, get, mass media is always great too. And then what Brett does, what I do, I wear my Michigan Panther hat just about every day. When you wear the merchandise, you're basically a billboard.
Right.
So getting people eyes on the logo, that's what, at least so when they see that, because, Fox is going to air the commercials on the big events that people watch too. So, and then an idea too. So if you know a team's, let's say on the road or something like that, go to a sports bar. My idea is to go to Buffalo Wild Wings. Hey, let's get the UFL on these TVs here because there's going to be people in there that don't even know football's on. So when you go in there and it's like, oh, hey, can I get it on the big screen here? And then, oh, there's UFL on the big screen. You're going to have everybody because everyone, when they see football in the United States, goes like this when they see football.
Yeah. Football is king.
Football is
Yep.
king. So do that. So that's there's a few ways out there to get more eyes on it, and so some people call up your local sports bars when the UFL is coming around. Say, hey, you guys know that there's football on? And advertise it. Hey, come watch the football game here, and then hey, the business can get more people in there. So just my 2 cents on that, and what the fans can do. Mr. Brock Trice, that we're not just going to sit on the sideline and leave it to chance for this league to not succeed. We're going to be on the front lines, us here, the boatsmen, Brett, all of us here. We'll lead the charge if we have to. We'll pull the bootstraps up and we'll get boots on the ground if we need to.
I totally understand the guy's point about the fans shouldn't have to. I get that.
But
Yeah, I agree
we
with
want,
him.
we want to, though.
For
We
instance,
want
the NFL, they don't have to. But go up to Buffalo and see the Bills Mafia up there. Go, and I don't mean at tailgating. I'm talking about around Buffalo. They want to. They want to run their mouths about their team, and it's because they love it. I mean, obviously, Kansas City fans definitely do. That's because they just got those Super Bowls. But the fans, the fan base is going to get out there and they're going to talk about their team. They're going to promote it, even though they don't have to. But that's part of why we love it. I mean, you can think about the same thing with music. How many times have you told somebody about one of your favorite bands and you just keep on talking about it? And next thing you know, they're listening to it. So that's how it works. You talk about this. Yeah, you talk about wearing the swag. I'm in Showboat stuff almost 7 days a week. I've got so much in the closet. It's insane looking. And I wear it everywhere. And I will tell you, 4 out of 5 times, somebody will look down and they'll either say, I remember the Showboats from the 80s. So how was this team? Or they'll say, go Boats. And every once in a while, I get the Showboats. What is that, a soccer team, basketball? And then I'm able to bring it up and talk about it then because they open the door.
Yeah.
One thing, too, that with the USFL side of the conference, so with 3 of us here, Panthers, Stallions, and Showboats, we have the luxury of, going back in time a little bit. Now, I wasn't even a thought in 1983. But, thank goodness there's YouTube. You can go back and watch, the players back then and watch the game. You can go watch the games from back then. It's incredible.
Yep.
It's a football library. So, yeah, there's the helmet there, Reggie White days. And it's incredible. And I hope there's, I want this league to succeed for long enough where we can talk about, the UFL back when it started, when it was still a baby. And,
Exactly.
And that's the thing that I love that I think so special about this league, and especially where we are right now as fans too. We're watching it, and the league's still a baby, folks. Like this thing's not gonna, we're not gonna see, it's not gonna be NFL overnight. It's gonna take some time. There's gonna be some growing pains, which are going through the growing pains. But keep in mind too, and I had to tell myself this too. When we heard it last year. Crawl, walk, run. Where are we in that stage? Are we in the part where, when you see, if you have a niece or a nephew, son or daughter, they take their first couple steps, then they kind of plop down and they get back up and they plop down again. Maybe that's kind of where the UFL is. We're getting ready to go from the crawling stage to the walking stage. So it's growing. People just got to just keep believing in the product. It'll come. We know what the UFL, Redbird, Fox, they believe in the product. We all do. So just have everybody rowing in the same direction. I think it'll be a great thing. And I think UFL is here to stay. I see more and more things. I'm seeing more and more people in Facebook comments from other on other platforms for the NFL. You have more people. We used to have. I used to see Brett on there all the time, just telling people about the UFL, and he'd be the only one. Now you're seeing more and more people mention UFL. Hey, there's UFL. So it's growing and growing and growing and growing. So all things I think are pointing up in the upward direction right now.
Yeah.
So I've got my tickets bought already for Mother's Day weekend when St. Louis Battlehawks travel to Memphis to play the Showboats on Mother's Day afternoon. So I got to believe that between you and Bill Alexander and a few others that you guys can probably take care of my tailgate for me.
Yep, you got it. We got the chief cook, trust me. And we've got more. He's got guys working with him. I mean, I tell people all the time, Curtis, that's chief cook. He's got it down. And there's another guy there, James Pennington. Oh my God, he's got ribs that he makes that they sit in like the top 3 I've had in my entire life.
Wow.
And being in the Delta here and everything, I used to live in Texas, of course, and everything. And I always teased my Texas affiliates. I'm like, I don't want to hear about barbecue from you guys. Just like I don't want to hear about beef brisket from people up here. Trust me, Texas knows their beef brisket. We know our barbecue. So, and you get down in Alabama, Brett knows it too. It's good. So, trust me, we'll feed you. We'll feed you well.
It's not bad. I'll give you that.
So it's been a pleasure having you on, Jeremy. And
it's been a pleasure being here.
And why don't you let everybody know, take a few minutes here and just let everybody know where they can find you. Give us anything that's going on in Memphis between now and the start of the season to help promote the Showboats. And I'll let you take that away.
Well, as far as where you can find me at, you'll find me on Facebook. Just look for it like it says right there, The Boatsman. And as far as being at the games, I am open to anybody coming up wanting to get pictures and everything. I also try to get out around towns, just not with these on, but definitely with all the swag on and everything. I'm constantly promoting the team. I'm going to businesses, talking to those people. And, you just got to imagine if you get an employee at a place suddenly decide while the Showboats are there handing out swag to customers, hey, I think I want to go. Forget maybe customers. What about the people that work there as well? Next thing you know, they're going to take their wife or their husband. They're going to go. It'll domino. It will grow. And like Palco said, it's in its infancy stage. So it's going to be, crawl, walk. I still say we're in the crawl stage because of the merger, but we'll get back to it. But yeah, as far as the fans go, come on out to the games, see my nutty butt out there, and watch some extremely good football. Don't fall for it. If you hear somebody naysaying it, saying it's not worth it, I promise you, it's worth it. All you got to do is before a home game, watch one on Fox, watch one on ESPN. You'll see these guys have got some skills. Come out and support them. They're trying to get back to the NFL. They're trying to get to the NFL. And
they're all very thankful and friendly and responsive. We stayed when we were in Canton a couple of years ago. We stayed in the same hotel with the Birmingham Stallions, and man, it was just like hanging out, at a bar watching the game. We hung out with them before the game. We hung out with them after the championship game, and probably to 2 or 3 in the morning. It's a fantastic experience. You need to come to some of the events. We went to a event at Top Golf last year in Birmingham and got to play golf with some of the guys. Dude, I'm telling you, just do one game and one event, and you'll be hooked.
So
Amen.
Just want all the viewers to know that this isn't going to be the first time Jeremy's on. We're going to bring him on throughout the season when the matchups warrant, and even let him be involved in the pick'em segment, even though it's a battle for second place behind me. So
that's my title this year. You're just holding on to it for me.
So thanks again, Jeremy, for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, it'll be time to turn the page and talk Houston Roughnecks. We'll be right back.
Go Boats.
Go Boats.
The best of the best is coming together. There's no more what ifs. We're on one league now.
Ready to shut it off. I'm number one in the building.
There's no more talk. Put up or shut up. We'll see who the top dogs is now.
Strap it up and line it up.
Joining forces means more power.
Delirium in D.C.
More potential. More reach.
Unbelievable.
Look for a chance to play ball, man. Chance to show that you still got it.
The hunger is unreal.
Helmet goes on. Nothing else in the world matters.
Tell them I'm ready. Whenever they want, 'cause I'm ready.
A league that pushes the envelope and opens the door to living the dream.
I've been an underdog my whole career.
Football is kind of my last resort. If I could just get this one little break.
Brace the moment, man. This is as fun as it gets right here.
United, they stand to stake a claim to springtime for America's favorite game. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
know we ready. Yes, sir. Ready to run it back.
Hell yeah, I'm ready.
For a new era.
Let's go.
New challenges.
Best in the nation.
A new beginning.
The time is now.
Line it up, Playboy. Let's do it.
I can't wait to see you guys play.
Are you ready?
This is the United Football League.
Just don't blink.
We love the moments, the memories, the magic, the game. So let's get moving. More action, more unforgettable, more swagger, more football, more of what you love.
That was my lead-in for the Houston Roughnecks. And again, courtesy of the UFL, wanted to make sure I said that I've got so many videos that I play from their website. I just want to make sure I give them credit for that. But
credits will do fine.
It's time to bring on our next super fan and start talking Houston Roughnecks football. He's no stranger to the league, I'm sure. And he's been highly active, too, in grassroots of trying to get butts and seats. Let's bring on the super fan for the Houston Roughnecks, none other than KJ.
What's up, guys? Thank y'all for having me.
What's up, bud?
So get one thing out of the way right off the bat. Just one thing that's been kind of puzzling to me. Just wanted to get your thoughts on it, and then I'll put it to rest. But it seems like in today's football, when teams have issues with records, success, whatnot, one of the first things they always look at is replacing the head coach. And in this case, looking at C.J. Johnson's history, he, as the NCAA head coach, he was 15-34. As a UFL coach, he was 6-14. So he had an overall record of 21-48 as a head coach. Now we talk about the Houston Roughnecks in year two of their rebranding or a new team. Last year they brought in, they kept the Roughnecks name, but kept the Gamblers roster. So what do you think, because as you look at the UFL front office, they thought it was necessary to go into Memphis and replace Coach Flip, but not replace Coach C.J. Johnson. So what's your thoughts on that, KJ, right off the top?
I think, was it Jeremy or you, Brett, who stated earlier, and it kind of dawned on me when you made the comment, but one thing no one's ever definitively answered for me is, and I don't know if anybody knows the answer from a fan point of view, is with regards to the hiring decisions per team throughout the league. A lot of people were, as you pointed out, when they changed GMs, but then kept CJ, people were questioning, well, does the head coach, is he the top position within the team, even over the GM, or is it vice versa, or is the league making these calls, team to team? And I don't know if I've ever had anybody formally answer that question in a way that's confirmed, if you will. But it's interesting, the point that was made earlier. Like I said, I don't know if it was you, Brett, or Jeremy Bozeman that stated it. They did the opposite kind of transition change with Memphis that they did with Houston. So one could ponder the idea that maybe they're using us almost as two sets of guinea pigs to see, quasi what. I know that sounds corny, but it's just theoretically something that popped into my head. Maybe they're doing us the opposite that they did the Showboats, simply to see what the outcome effect is in the long run, postseason this year. Personally, for me, I mean, we could sit here all day and, nitpick every positional coach from HC down to, special teams, whatever, what have you. Honestly, I think it's a waste of time as a fan because we have no control over that. I do think that obviously the squeaky wheel gets the oil, so to speak, in a lot of components, maybe even in that one too, to some respect. But I mean, if the league is the one making the decisions on who they keep and who they fire, we can do as much as we can, but there's no guarantee that what we say in that specific element is going to have any effect or cause on who they keep on board for every team. So I honestly, I haven't spent a lot of time. I was maybe a little frustrated with it initially, but then again, I looked back and took solace in the fact that in the USFL, CJ was 500. So it's not to say that the man has not had greater success than what he had last year. You could argue, okay, well, he's trending downward. That's fair. But I think I was looking back at the stats for, kind of to put them side by side. I mean, from a win percentage, Ken and Curtis are literally decimal points apart. Granted, their resumes are distinctly different in the sense that CJ never had, or Curtis never had any time in NFL where Ken did. But I mean, there's not a lot of difference respective to their win percentages when you really put pen to paper. So I mean, while it's good to have a new face in the scheme for a team, no doubt, I wouldn't, completely throw the baby out with the bathwater. I guess is that the catchphrase they use? Since we're only in year 3, really, of his coaching tenure.
So have you noticed anything different so far this year? I know we're early and camp hasn't even really got going yet, so it's kind of hard to tell as far as player personnel goes if there's really been a reset. But do you see anything? Has there been any talks of the 2025 Houston Roughneck roster, if it's going to, if there's going to be a turnover, or what have they said what they're actually gunning for as far as this season?
Earlier, I believe it was the week before last, or maybe it was last week, they had the open house at TDCU for season ticket members to do their pick a seat there. And I believe Coach Johnson, amongst probably some other staff, were present. I wasn't able to attend that, but I know some of our other super fans for the team were. I'd seen some fans even in our social media group share photos. It possibly may have been brought up then, but outside of formal face-to-face functions that they had in the offseason, which have been minimal, I have not heard anything announced or even hinted at from a strategic standpoint of what their vision is or what they're trying to really focus on from a positional group standpoint. I will say when I look at the stats from the roster tracker I've got pulled up here for this offseason acquisitions compared to last year's, I do think we've, even just looking at the historical stat component, in my opinion, I think they've already improved in the QB room. And I mean, on the offensive side, which most would, know from past viewership is where we struggled the most as a team last season. There were plenty of games you could argue defensively, our defense did near everything they could to keep us in the games. And in some cases, even against Brett Stallions, I mean, we played one hell of a game for a good majority of the competition there. Couldn't obviously, pull it off in the end, but I think if you can match that level of intensity and production on the opposite side of the football, I mean, it's a whole different world in terms of what potentially you can end up with from a win-loss standpoint come season end. So for me, like I said, I see positional improvement already in who they've got in the QB room. Obviously, we'll find out via camp who actually gets, kind of the starting spot there. I think I was looking back. I didn't honestly, respectfully, I'm by no means an expert being just a general super fan, but I didn't know Tom Cable from Adam prior to them announcing his hiring for the team. So yeah. I did my effort to look back over his history, and I didn't realize he's had notable success in each of the teams on the pro side that he was with. He improved the Raiders, I think, in multiple statistics, even in when 2008 when they had a losing record. And then I didn't realize he was the guy, if you will, for much of Seattle Seahawks mid 2010 seasons when Lynch was on a terror streak. So I think that speaks maybe to what he can potentially bring to our team. We weren't horrible per se offensively and on the line standpoint, but I think when you look back, and I don't have the exact figures, but outside of like critical, defensive error penalties, unsportsmanlike conduct, face mask, whatever you want to call it, I think offensively is probably where we had the biggest problem with just core discipline, offsides, false starts. I mean, we'd have offensive drives where we were trucking down the field in a game, and then boom, some critical third down penalty screws us over when we could have got a first down conversion because of a false start, a holding penalty, what have you. So, I mean, if the level of execution and discipline that Tom was able to help produce in Seattle is something that he can, even from a cultural standpoint, bring to our team this season, I mean, the sky's the limit in terms of what we may see come week 10, with ending stats for this Roughnecks team.
Yeah, I mentioned that to Ed when Cable was hired. I said, look, if CJ doesn't turn things around this year, Cable would be the obvious replacement moving forward in Houston next season. And Houston's probably got what a 80 or 90% roster turnover from last season. I mean, it's incredible. This is basically a whole new team, and I'm definitely pulling for Houston. You know, I want all these teams to succeed. I think it's going to help attendance, them being back at TDECU Stadium, and
100%.
I think there was multiple reasons why Cable was given that job. If they don't, I think if the league doesn't see enough improvement with the head coaching overall, I do think Cable's probably your man next season, which would be the high level coach, like you mentioned, KJ.
Well, I think of my, my input here. So, if you're, first things first, I mean, a good start is if you can fix the offensive line, that'll give you'll at least be in every game. And looking at the Houston Roughnecks from last season, and they've been in some games, that there's some that, were lopsided, but then there's a few that, they've had a shot to win those games. So they're competitive, they just, for those looking at the results and things, obviously pro football is results based, but starting with the offensive line, Tom Cable's a quality coach there. So I think if CJ Johnson can get this thing, get in the playoff hunt, see improvement. If you can see improvement all around in the team, because I know there's some clock management things he may have to evaluate, do better with, and penalties are obviously killer in the game. But if you can just, get in the playoff hunt, get in the playoff chase, turn this thing around, he'll be just fine. I think, with the roster overhaul, it's going to be exciting stuff. It's almost going to be like a fresh team, get rid of, the whole, for the fans that may think, oh, this is still the Gamblers. I don't think, they're much more of the Gamblers anymore. I think you can go Houston Roughnecks, here's the new squad, come out and support the squad, cheer for them, because the fan base, having the fans in their corner, there is such thing as a 12th man, get loud, Panther games too. We've caused false starts. We've caused different things for the offense on the opposing side of the game to have some trouble. So you can be a big part of this rebuild here, fans. Get out to the game and support the Roughnecks.
Well, I did see that they did have a league high 75 penalties last year, so that is definitely a problem. I've always said that the hardest victory is always your first victory, and it seems like the longer you're over, the more it just builds and builds and makes it, everybody more and more uptight. Yeah. So last year they didn't get that first win till week 4. So I think it's important that they start fast and get that win out of the way just to get going. Yeah. You don't, the last thing you want is a slow start. And then here comes everybody out of the woodwork. The head coach gone, and that's the last thing you want to do.
Back to one thing KJ mentioned, probably one of their best games last year was in Birmingham. They gave Birmingham every bit they wanted. And if you remember, Ed, in St. Louis late in the season, Houston gave St. Louis just about everything they wanted for 3.5 quarters. Houston was very, very competitive at times this year, but like you mentioned with the penalties, they hurt themselves quite a bit.
No, for sure. I would have no doubt to say that there was at least a couple games there that we, as the catchphrase goes, we probably lost the game for ourselves, not necessarily the other team holistically just beat us, and that was the only reason we lost.
Yeah, I'm looking at the games from last season too. 7 of the games on the schedule were 1-score games. So don't think that Houston's just this god awful team. Like there's pieces in there to be competitive. So just keep, keep the support there. They deserve the support. Football, and I like to say any given Sunday too. So pro football is a different beast when you play the games. Like Jeremy said, they don't play on paper; they play on the gridiron. So it's gonna be real exciting.
It's like the 1-score games are not just to tout our horn, but I think that speaks to the league as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that was true in almost every spring football season I think I've watched as a viewer in general. A lot of the games, almost the majority of them, are very close. So,
well, You were right about the defense. I know that particular week against St. Louis, it has to be frustrating for a defense to go out there and play quality game after quality game, week in and week out, only to come up short. And the offense only averaged 17 points last year a game. So there was just the defense kept them right in there. They just didn't have the offense to get over the hump. So I got to believe that this camp, there's probably a pretty big effort into getting the offense shored up a bit.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's cool that whether intentional or not, I think the fact that we, as Brett mentioned, are back at TDCU, which historically, every year, unfortunately, has trended downward from an attendance standpoint, I think, since 2020. But that's where we've had our greatest success from an attendance standpoint. So I have no doubt that if any place is going to usher in more people, it's going to be a more modern venue like TDCU. We've got, even awesome food components within that, vendors and availability. I know some St. Louis fans like to say that they love their arena, but then they hate a lot of the other secondary factors. That's one that I know not many fans, if any, in Houston will complain on, because our facilities are pretty fair, well up to date. I'm sure the same is true in Protective too, because it's such a newer kind of venue, historically speaking. But yeah, I mean, that component paired with the fact that we're starting against St. Louis, I think is almost iconic in a sense, because we have not been successful against them since 2020 during the undefeated season when PJ was kind of leading company there. And if you look at it from that sense, not only getting a win week one, as Ed, you mentioned, would be pivotal for kind of just getting us starting on the right bat, but getting a win against a team we haven't beaten in multiple seasons would also be a secondary, like, this is a whole, this would convince the fan, but this is a new squad. This isn't the 2024 Houston Roughnecks, so to speak.
So what is it about TD-ECU Stadium that is such a, well, why does the fan base see that stadium as so much more than what Rice Stadium was?
I think, I mean, you speak from an origination standpoint for those of us who have been followers and fans of the team since they started, and I speak to the original Roughnecks brand, obviously, but in 2020 with the XFL 2.0, that's where we began. That's where we've had our best memories, if you will. So there's so much positive animosity and memorandum, I guess is the best word, tied to that venue respective to our team. We could play anywhere theoretically, but when you have history somewhere, it bolsters the fan base and the positivity around your organization. I think that's no matter who you're speaking about. St. Louis is St. Louis because of the fact that they are such a great sports town, but also because they pack out the freaking American Bank Center or whatever it's called almost every dang week. You can't beat that when you've got an army of fans screaming loud. And I will commend what Palco mentioned about the fan component and the home field advantage. I think there was some component, even minimalistically, of that being true at Rice, with only 6,000 and change people in attendance. There were a couple plays I know definitively we got loud enough with just that small number of people to screw up the other team and get an offside or a delay game call.
Yep.
If we can do it with six and change, I mean, imagine what we can do with double, triple, quadruple that.
I think it was San Antonio Brahmas game, I think, is where there was a big fan turnout too, that you could hear the fans in that close game there. So that was and I enjoyed watching the Roughnecks. It's almost like, and this is kind of like I hate to make this comparison, but as an old Detroit Lions fan, it's kind of like when everyone kind of like when Detroit's, they've had their rough patches, and like you get, I think football fans like come together to kind of root for the Lions when they're them 1-win seasons, and it was kind of like, will the Roughnecks pull it off? So that's one of the things I think too, that Houston getting their wins would be a nice feel good story. I think across the UFL, if they can get this thing turned around.
I think it helps outside of the memory component and just history. The fact that TDCU is positioned so much closer to kind of the epicenter of Houston and downtown, even from the upper seating, you can, even with them building out the football center that they've got, the facility, indoor training field they've got for the Cougars that took up a large portion of the open skyline we used to have in that kind of northeast corner of the stadium. you can still, if you're in the upper sections, you can see a beautiful view of the skyline of Houston. Rice, as you know, prestigious as a university as it is, their campus is almost kind of like isolated within the medical center, which is its own kind of downtown, secondary downtown to the greater Houston area. And so I think people just like the component of that. I'm sure in 2020, I never did a poll or a survey, but there's no telling how many just quasi Coug fans gave our Roughnecks a chance day one and have been fans ever since, simply because we already had an established football culture there. So
Christine chimes in and says that TDECU has better seats and a better tailgate area.
Yeah, the league was really given a tough hand last year with the Rice Stadium. I spoke to one of the main ticket guys 2 or 3 weeks before the season started, and he mentioned that he knew and that they knew it was going to be a rough year in Houston because you had gambler players, Houston, Roughneck uniforms. The Roughneck fans wasn't real happy about that. And then at Rice Stadium is very, very, very ancient. There was a lot of components there that the ticket guys told me they knew it was going to be a long year for Houston, probably on the field and in the stands. So I think this year is going to be a total 360.
I agree.
So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, let's get a little bit into as we did with Memphis. Let's talk a little bit about the grassroots effort in Houston area to try and drum up more butts in the seats.
Hey, Ed.
Yeah.
Before we cut to commercial, I wanted to mention this about 20 minutes ago, and I got a private message from Brock Boomer. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. Boomer and the Horsemen, which is ran by Chase, Blake, and Bo, my original admin that helped me with the Birmingham Stallions group, do a fantastic job of promoting the Stallions in the league in the Birmingham area. So I was not knocking them or Boomer at all. It was funny because I was thinking I needed to make that statement, and Boomer sent me a message and said, basically, you need to make sure Ed and all them know how much I work my ass off. and I just kind of giggled, and I thought, well, I was already going to do that. But yeah, look, Boomer's right. I feel, look, it's not our place, but it is. But Boomer doesn't, those guys in Birmingham don't fall short. We're fighting. We're all in this together.
And one quick note here before we go to break too, and this is the kind of echo off of what Boomer was talking about. Like, we need the suits he says we need the suits to answer the phone. And I hear that, and I reach out to the Panthers almost, there's a handful of times I've reached out to them. They told me same things. Like, hey, we don't have enough. There's no openings here. Like the offices, there's only like one person for sponsorship, a couple people for sales. Like that, I'm like knocking. I'm like on the door. Like, how can I help here? And I'm trying to get back to working in spring football, and there's no opportunities right now. And it's just such small staffs to work with. They're trying. There's not enough hours in a day for what these guys need to do, and that's unfortunate too. But that's just where it's like, oh well. I'm not just going to sit by the wayside and just watch this thing. I'm going to do whatever I can. I'm not afraid of some free labor or anything like that, especially if it's something I'm passionate about, like spring football. So this is near and dear to me, and I want to see this thing through for as long as possible. So I'll do what I can to, make sure the lights are still on.
So with that, courtesy of the UFL, we'll be right back.
This is more than a game. It's passion that fuels us. The action.
My goodness.
The excitement. The pride.
To the end zone. Touchdown.
Where stars emerge.
He got smoked.
Where legacies begin.
You're feeling awfully confident right now.
Where the future of football is taken to new heights.
Touchdown. Bam. He got whacked.
Get ready.
Just bad intentions. Wow.
For more football this spring.
Playing with some swagger.
A new UFL season kicks off on March 28th.
And a beautiful Sunday morning. He was pumping up his beer snake friends back in the door. So many personalities on the field and in the stands in this league.
We love the moments, the memories, the magic, the game. So let's get more. More action. More celebration. More unforgettable. More football. More of what you love.
We are back. So before we get into that grassroots effort, I know, KJ, you were talking before the show started that you were doing some comparisons, I believe stats, correct?
Yes, to some degree, yes.
Did you want to take a few minutes and fill us in on some of the stuff you got worked up?
Yeah, I can definitely share and kind of breeze over, give you the Cliff Notes version, I guess, so to speak. One of the biggest things I noted, I spoke on this when we were kind of in the pre-show room. I believe the QB room has improved. And the reason I say that, when you look at the numbers, these are taking stats from basically every player's, I guess, most recent season. Obviously, for those who don't know, currently our QB room includes Nolan Henderson, which was our last essential starter that we had from the 2024 season. And then they also, over the offseason, traded to get, I believe, Jalen McClendon from the Defenders. And we picked up Anthony Brown, who's a past Baltimore Raven. And I believe the most recent NFL preseason he played, he was with the Raiders for several games during that preseason. I don't remember how many exactly he played in, but just recalling their stats, if you will, from the previous seasons. Anthony was at like an 80 percentile in terms of completion percentage. And I watched a lot of his highlights when he played those Raiders games, and his awareness was top notch. He was very mobile in the pocket, kind of similar to a Nolan, but I think he's got when you look at if you want to really get down to the granular components, I want to say he has like 2 or 3 inches on Nolan in terms of height. So, to whatever degree you want to account for that to having a positive effect in a QB room competition, so be it. Nolan's ending stats last season weren't the greatest in terms of completion percentage. He was at 58.1, but he did have a good, what I like to call the touchdown to interception ratio, which was 2-to-1. And as many people know from plenty of highlights, he was extremely mobile in the pocket and was definitely able to scramble when needed in a lot of those games to help the play develop and let receivers get open when needed. My biggest thing that I saw from him outside of both Stinnett and I forget the guy's name that we had from Washington State, Tennessee, who we started with, Jarrett Garantano, however you pronounce his last name. The biggest thing I took from Nolan was he had just kind of a different level of moxie and grit about him in the pocket during his play that I didn't see from the other 2 guys last season. So I think that speaks, obviously, the fact also that he has experience even playing in spring ball, which is something Jalen's far removed from. And Anthony, even though he's been in the pros and the NFL, which would be kind of a feather in his cap, every, I think, league is a little different. So it's interesting to take that experience he has and I think roll it over to this next year with, essentially most of the same coaching staff and what you would assume scheme-wise some of may be replicated during camp. But I am very excited that we have those guys. I think that will bring a higher level of competition during camp that we didn't have last year, and just kind of compared it to their stats. I think when you look at the rest of the league, these were kind of grades I gave myself looking at each team's QB rooms. While we're not the best, we're by no means in the bottom when it comes to QB stats. I think I ranked this kind of at the number 5 position out of the 8 teams we have in the league. Our running back room, I think, is in the top half of the UFL based on the stats I reviewed. We obviously don't have Mark Thompson anymore. He was kind of the go-to guy last season, but I think they've kind of filled the vacancy there and done a pretty good job picking up other guys, whether it be Zaquandre Wright that they got from DC, excuse me, or Morgan Ellison from San Antonio. He definitely, I think, helped their team out a lot last year. So I think there is some depth we've improved on in certain positional groups. Outside of that, I mean, it's really just a matter of, I haven't gotten into the weeds on our offensive line, but I know they've done a lot of effort to pick up new guys in that respect. And as Brett touched on, we just had a high turnover. So, I mean, really it's going to come down to seeing who's able to step up, fill the void. And, you know, if things can piecewise come together in the right cohesion with Tom Cable helping kind of lead the role there on the offensive side of the ball, I think there is definitely a lot to be optimistic about. So.
Tom Cable, if you guys done your research, he's not a guy that even these big young studs want to be trifled with. Cable, if you see him in a back alley, you want him on your side, and they're going to listen to him one way or the other. And I think it's going to improve Houston dramatically with that offensive line. They didn't have the kind of offensive line that Memphis had this year or last year, bless their hearts. But yeah, he's going to do a good job there in Houston. And I mean, man, I just wish we kicked off this weekend, man.
I'll say this: I think I was fortunate enough last year to go, and I think Brett, you were there to go to the Stallions opening fan engagement event prior to the season kicking off last year.
Yeah, I didn't even know you were there. Remember?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But I got to be amongst the other media personnel who were able to interview Coach privately before they had the kind of public event there at Protective. And I'll tell you, I mean, I'm not going to speak ill of any head coach in this league, but because every guy brings something different by all means. One thing I will say, though, is there is a component of charisma and atmospheric change you can just sense when you meet certain people in leadership. And Skip brings that 100,000%, and his resume, I mean, is indicative of it. There's no doubt in that, no dispute in that whatsoever. I say all that to kind of touch on, I think, Palco, you mentioned this earlier. It's, you know, when it comes down to it, if you don't have the fundamentals, the discipline, just as a team, broadly speaking, you don't have the right culture in place, your team is only going to progress and do so well. It's an automatic restrictor to your potential ceiling as an organization. And when you can have that element of culture and foundational construction in place that is where it needs to be and provides the components that are necessary to build from, like Skip has done. I mean, obviously every team has had turnover in the league. There's probably, I know, plenty of positional guys, whether it be, is it Sternberg, the tight end, amongst, you know, QBs and other guys that y'all have that have returned year after year. But I mean, even with the turnover, you've seen the success replicated because of guys in leadership like Skip Holtz. So, I mean,
Skip gets the most out of the players, man. And I've been to so many events with him and around the player. You know, he's like one of their buddies, but now they respect him. You've seen some of his sideline, you know, he'll get on them, but he's like you said, he's charismatic, but he's a guy that you want to play for and that you respect. And I'm gonna tell you what, Birmingham and the Stallions in the league in general are so blessed to have Skip Holtz. And I know all the other teams and franchises and fan bases are probably wanting him to go on. You know, he was telling me in Birmingham in November, he said, Brett, I've gotten 5 offers. He said, I really like the job. I like what I'm doing. And I just like, you know, sounds good, Coach. You just keep doing your thing, you know.
No,
we're all here for you, you know.
There's
As
no
a fan,
doubt.
and I want him here too. I like that.
There's no doubt there's fan bases across the league that are having like quasi Nick Saban flashbacks. And they're like, didn't we lose this Alabama team already? What the hell is this?
We're blessed, and you know, look at the coaching staff. Michigan's coach. We've got Bob Stoops. I mean, just on and on and on. And it's exciting to see where this league is headed. And I know a lot of the fans and fan bases are whining and complaining that they don't have 10 sets of boots on the ground in every city. But I've had these calls and these talks with the league upper people, and they have a strict budget in place. for year 2. They've already got their budget in place for next year. And look, they've got everything set up for a very, very long run here. And I couldn't be more excited as a spring football fan.
I thought about it, maybe there's a day in the success of the league, you bring back, let's say, a New Jersey Generals, and who do we want charismatic, who's a salesman, who would, be awesome for the league to have? And you think about, like, what if the Generals came back and they got like a guy like Rex Ryan to be the head coach, a guy he's a salesman himself, and he would talk about the UFL, and they're on ESPN and things, just so much. Like, you get guys like that. I think too, getting the NFL star power kind of head coaches, with the Wisenhunt, with the Nolan, and Wade Phillips of the world's coming in this league. Then you got some guys, cutting their teeth, at the pro level football, and Skip Holstead, he's doing a phenomenal job too, and we love his. And the best thing too I love about this league, especially watching on television, is coaches mic'd up. You don't get that a whole lot in the NFL, and then you see those sideline moments where Skip has to maybe tone somebody down on. We've seen one about the celebration, the end zone, and we've seen the one about Skip Holtz saying, "Hey, after the personal foul against Michigan, back to the team." He's like, "I don't have a 3rd and 30 call. I don't have one of those. We gotta do, be mindful of the situation in the game." So just a lot of teachable moments in there. That I think a lot of these guys too, and a lot of these guys too in the league are teachers of the game, and it's very, very cool to see these guys doing what they do, and they love it. I've heard Mike Nolan in a conversation at Ford Field. He absolutely loves coaching in the UFL. And he calls, he calls them kids, calls the kid, because he's a grandfather, and a lot of the guys too in this league, he loves them like they're his own, children. So it's great. It's great all around. As for a fan, if you have an NFL team in your city and there's a UFL team in your city too, and I've seen it too. Pre-game, you try to get Aiden Hutchinson's attention, all these other guys in the NFL, they don't pay you any mind, but you do that in the UFL, talk to, hey, kind of cool, hey, how you doing? They'll turn and wave to you. It's great. I love this product, and I hope more people see the same things that we all see, and that's only going to help the league from there.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up Mike. He was another person I kind of looked back at from a statistical standpoint, compared with the USFL of 2023 versus how the Panthers did last year. And he went from, albeit a different team structure with the USFL and being a separate league prior to merger. But I mean, from a losing record from 4-6 and then turn it around to 7-3, I think that's plenty to applaud and be thankful for. And I mean, if he can do it, who's to say that any coach can? I think, it's like I said before, there's some things we can and can't control. We can sit here and cry and moan and groan all day about coulda, woulda, shouldas. I prefer to lean more into the can, might, will categories and look to the future and see, what could possibly happen.
And that 4-6 Panther team was a playoff team. So, and we talk about too with the division structures and everything, you just, for the USFL side of things, that's going to be 3, we assuming Birmingham's going to keep rolling. It's a 3-team battle for that second place spot.
Right.
So every game, especially those division games, absolutely critical to win. That's, I get so excited about the divisional matchups. I get so excited because how the stakes are so high, and every game matters too. I mean, because it's only 10 weeks. And less is more for this league for sure. But it's, it's that race for that second spot, until somebody beat, you got to, in order to be the man, you got to beat the man. So happy birthday, Ric Flair, for those who missed out on that. But at any rate, these games are huge. So every home game that you have, especially if you have not been to a UFL game, and our home opener is Michigan, is against Birmingham. Holy smokes. You want to talk about a Friday night home opener, and you get a divisional matchup, and you want to talk about a rivalry. Now, I know Birmingham's had Michigan's number the last few years, but, Michigan's been the team that's kind of given Birmingham some fits. It's like we're right there. We there's some games that's like, a missed field goal away from beating the Stallions, and Jake Bates is doing phenomenal things in the NFL, but That's going to be an incredible game. There's fans who have, I'm telling them, hey, if you have not been to a Panther game, go to the Friday night against Birmingham. It's a divisional game, high stakes, rivalry. It's going to have, it's everything that you want in a football game. The ticket pricing, the parking, the food and beverage, the atmosphere. You're not taking, I'm still I'm still paying off a playoff ticket for the Washington Commanders and Lions game, folks. Like, it's not like that with the UFL.
That was some painful dollars that you had to pay for.
Those are very painful dollars to see, sir. It's a reminder of what happened. So, but with the UFL, you go to one, you're going to want to go back. It's incredible. It's a lot of fun. Great. It's the most fun I've had in football, watching, the Michigan Wolverines, against Ohio State 2021. Last time I was at the Big House. What a great moment that was. But, honestly, I was freezing in that game too with all the snow, but definitely worth it, watching football up here in the cold. But at any rate, this spring football atmosphere, it's so much fun. You can go and it's a family atmosphere. You don't got people, like a Falcon fan or a Packer and Bear fan talking, and how those go in those games. And but a lot of fun. I encourage everybody, all the listeners out there, if you have not been to it, find the closest UFL game to you. Take a trip out there, go check it out. So much fun.
So KJ, we had the league announced some rule changes. We got three changes for this year. One being the elimination of the onside kick. We're back to the 4th and 12, putting the ball on the 28. Kind of interesting. They've added another coaching challenge. If the first one is successful, and you have the timeout in case it's not successful. And then, of course, the UFL brought back the kickoff that we gave up last year that the NFL took. And now we're going back to that again. What's your thoughts on those three rule changes? And, are you for or against them?
I would say 100% for. The only discussion point, I think, with any of those three, and Brett's talked on this before, is the I think 12 versus 15-yard marker with regards to the fourth and conversion one. I would have to look back at you have to do a kind of almost a historic stat comparison with what the XFL experienced with the original, 15-yard version.
Right.
What we saw was it, the year before last, to see kind of how they compare and if there's really that much of a statistical difference in terms of conversion rate. I don't know how much actual metadata you could pull from only 2 isolated seasons, but that aside, that whole component as it's on a standalone premise is, miles and light years ahead, I think, in terms of comparing it to the onside kick from a traditional standpoint. And then the coach challenge is kind of just almost an evolutionary logical step, in my opinion, from what they started with one. They already have, 2 in the pros. It's standardized. Most, general fans are aware of that and have seen that play out in a regular NFL game. So I think putting kind of a spin on it, but also incorporating it back from a holistic standpoint into our game is only going to be furtherly beneficial. There's been plenty of times last season, and I know I wasn't the only fan raking my head over the coals during some games going Coach, why aren't you throwing the flag, wanting to pull our hair out because we saw a noticeable missed call, incomplete that was a reception or whatever it may be. And so I think that will just only add to the excitement of the game and seeing the tides turn for, teams in crucial moments. So.
And to talk about the 4th and 12 too, and Brett, correct me if I'm wrong too. I believe the USFL 2022 and 2023 had the 4th and 12 rule. Does that sound familiar, Brett? I believe the USFL had it. So they took
the USFL rule over the XFL, which is 4th and 15. Personally, I think 4th and 12 might be a little too easy. But again, like KJ said, I figured they were going to bring back the 4th and 15 this season, but I don't have a problem with it either way. I'm curious to what the statistics would say.
From what I
Yeah,
remember too, it made the games more exciting. You know, like when they had I remember like watching those games too, and when it was all hubbed in Birmingham, you know, you saw the 4th and 12, and it made the games exciting too because you want to see the close competitive football games too. And I don't remember. I mean, I think Michigan and there was only a handful, probably less than 5 overtime shootouts that we've actually had in spring football. So 4th and 12, you know, I mean, even when you're 3rd and 10, you know, that should be a huge advantage for the defense anyways, right? So
Right.
a couple more yards. I mean, I think I like it. You know, I like the 4th and 12, you know, or I think you'd still call it 4. Yeah, the onside kick being 12 yards. I don't think there's going to be anything I think it's going to be just fine. I think it's going to make the games more exciting, and it's just going to if you're down, you're not going to be out until the clock hits 0. So I think that's only going to give more hope, you know, stay locked into watching the game. Your team can come, if your team's down in the first half, just don't go away. Don't touch that remote. You know, don't flip that channel. Stick around, because if you get in these 4th and 12s, you start converting them. Before you know it, you're back in the game. You know, it's comebacks. You know, I think everyone likes a comeback story. Everyone likes to see a quarterback rally the troops. You see maybe EJ Perry for Memphis, you know, just slinging it 4th and 12. You know, I think it's gonna create more excitement, and I think that's gonna be good for television. Excitement is what's gonna get more people in the seats. So I think it's a great call to go with the 4th and 12.
I personally like the 4th and 15. 4th and 12 just doesn't seem that difficult to convert to me. So I would have liked the 4th and 15, but I like the idea they're bringing the kickoff back, though, because last year, kicking off from the 20, God, I'd like to know what the average starting field position was. It seemed like every time there was a kickoff, there was 40-yard line or sometimes midfield. And that just, to me, it just isn't fair for the defense. It puts way too much pressure. You know, you got kickers like Bates that are kicking 65-yard field goals. Shoot, you start at midfield, you need 1 first down, you're in field goal range already. So I like that aspect. I think the NFL missed they missed the boat on that. They made it still too easy to kick it in the end zone, so it just become a nothing burger.
They did mention 4 or 5 weeks in that they were considering moving the spot from the 30 to the 35, so they would be more apt to not kicking in the end zone. But they decided to hold on and just stuck with what they had. But yeah, you're right. They probably should have, which I think the UFL is going to spot it. At the 35? Is that right? If I
was the NFL, I'd say spot it at the 40. Because then you're going to have teams that are going to actually try and put some skill to special teams. And to me, the kickers are good enough in today's football that
they're incredible.
Pooch kick and stuff. I think that there's such an advantage that they could have field position wise by placement of the kickoff that could really become a nice thing to have. But as long as it was the 30 shoot, they just kept kicking it in the end zone. What a waste of time.
And then, talking about specialists too. I coached the specialists at Saginaw Valley State, long snappers, punters, and kickers. And you want to talk about how these guys are athletes too. Like, it's not just for that one, they're trying to perfect the game. They can do all sorts of different things. And kickers now, with the training and everything, the resources, the athletic trainers that are out there, and shoot, you're expected to make the 55-yarder, anymore. So it's incredible. And then adding to with the 4th and 12 too, and Ed with the 4th and 15, we all gotta be mindful of our friends who, when garbage time matters to some folks out there, right? So you know what I mean? So we're talking overs and spreads. So just maybe the 4th and 12 is not such a bad idea for those who want to play the game and stay tuned and watch the games until the very end, because you never know what happens, especially when these teams that are on the comeback. Oh, it's a 30-10 game. Well, now all of a sudden here is the 27-30 game. So you're gonna have some people celebrating that comeback. So
So, Kate, just to finish things off, as far as putting butts in the seats in Houston, have you seen any kind of a grassroots effort that's going on?
I, unfortunately, being a native, or not a native, current resident of Nashville, I have not made it back down home since the Christmas break. So I haven't had to be one of those people, or been fortunate enough, I would say, to have my hand as directly in the cookie jar on the ground there. But as most people know, I made an effort to try to share the QR code thing with schedules. Big shout out to Spurge for helping me with that. But I think outside of, just simply posting that wherever you can, I mean, this kind of even goes for Palco with the local like Detroit and Michigan community. You've got the easiest kind of springboard conversation topic with different players from the league, Bates being, I'd say, honestly, the Keystone poster boy for last year. And I mean, for those begruntled Lions fans who may be like, I don't want to re-up my season tickets, they're too expensive or whatever. It's like you have the literal, cookie cutter on a serving tray for you of conversation topic to pitch to somebody to go, hey, that guy that almost made it to a Super Bowl that was bagging groceries or laying bricks a year prior, he came from the UFL. So just things like that, I think will springboard the conversation. And as you already touched on, Ed, and I think even Jeremy mentioned this, like everywhere you go, if you just bring it up and talk about it, putting the bug in people's ear, eventually the domino effect will start. And, none of us can forecast how fast or how much that will matriculate over an unknown amount of time. So I put it this way in my head, kind of conceptualizing it with regards to ticket sales. I know most teams have reported a descent, I think, in the current sales numbers as they stand at present day. But if you were to look at it from the standpoint of all of us who are either season ticket holders or even the people that just went to one game last season, if you go to another game or buy up season tickets again this year and you bring just even one person every game that's new as a guest, we will at least match our numbers, if not exceed them. And, in theory, could double them if everybody rees up. I know that's not the case now, but it's just, those are the kind of things conceptually to think about to go, okay, yeah, it seems like this little thing isn't going to cause that much difference. But when, 50,000 ants band together, they build a pretty dang big anthill. So just that component of piece by piece, we do make a difference if you're willing to step up to the plate and do your part. So.
And one thing too about the season tickets, you might, because we'll see how these single game tickets go, because because I've heard some mix from season ticket holders that they didn't necessarily get the season ticket holder kind of value. You get access to.
I heard that too. That was the other thing I was going to say is, the single game component, maybe just people held off because they were concerned about that very thing. To your point,
yeah.
Yeah, if we have those same people come back on a season ticket standby for the whole season, you're still matching the bars. So
yeah, because that's how I've been. I'm not a season ticket holder, but I've never missed a Panther game. So I'll just single game ticket. They
don't give out jersey patches for that or anything. So it's not like it's always visually apparent of who's who in the stands. So it really
and the thing too, being in the ticket side of things too, there's one season ticket holders fans, they like the puff their chests out and be, I'm a season ticket holder, and I'm sure that there's value to that, and I think there should be, I think the league too really needs to. That's why I wish too that the league, when teams are local to their markets, I wish they were headquartered here. I wish the Panthers were here. So then you maybe have some more meet and greets and stuff. They'll be in Michigan a day before the game, which I don't know how much time, you might have the meet and greets, meet with some players here and there. But, that's why, hopefully there's a time where they can get out of the Arlington hub and just, hey, they'll get office space, headquartered in their own states and cities. So that's why I hope. That's my optimism for the future of the league. I don't know how far down the line that is, but it was certainly enjoyed with the USFL side of things, and I hope that comes to fruition at some point too, because that's what I would like to see. That's how I think you would really grow league and fan base too, as season ticket holders, because I think people want stuff close to home, close to heart, a little personal connection there too. And I think that's very easily can be obtained with a league like this. It's close knit. That's how it feels. I think with the fan bases, all of us, the teams, and players too. All the players are really down to earth too, and I think a lot of fans would appreciate those sort of players kind of taking time out just to say hi. You know, like Ryan Nelson from the Michigan Panthers is a great guy. You know, he'd be phenomenal to talk to. Offensive linemen are always fun to talk to, by the way, because they don't get like the microphones in their faces all the time. Offensive linemen love to talk, and they're the great people, and all these players in the UFL are great, and it's really exciting, and I hope that's something that happens at some point. I would really like that, and I think that'd be very special for the league to have.
So, Brett, before we let KJ go, I don't know if he had a chance to see your way too early power rankings for the UFL. Do you want me to pop them up quick and see what he thinks of it?
Sure, I gave KJ fits on his power rankings last year. Look, he's already shaking his head laughing. He had Birmingham 4th or 5th, and I couldn't let him go on that. I wrote him all year and then said I finally, after I think we won a championship, I might have said one more message to him like, "You think you might have been wrong on them power rankings now?"
So now I'm gonna let KJ see your power rankings here. And I'm going to give him I'm going to give him a little time to comment on them before we let him go.
I can't say I see numbers off of this one, but I think I know which one you're referencing, Ed. I don't remember the order y'all had on that other graphic that was shared. But I mean, I honestly, as it's trending right now, and I'm not by any means done with mine, but I know we're not going to be ascending the hill preseason wise by any means. I think, as I said, I've got most of my offensive done except the kind of perfecting the O-line grades on my end. And I haven't even touched on all the teams league-wide yet on defense, but I'm hoping to really knock all that out this weekend. Outside of those two components, I've got multiple other attributes I've graded on, and I've literally only got Houston like one spot higher as 7 over Memphis. But, I mean, that's negligible. I think most people would look at everything holistically with both those teams and where they're at and say they really are neck and neck, no matter which kind of order you put them, whether one ahead of the other. I know we've got a big hill to climb. I think that's why, even Vegas has got our odds so low, which is a really good buy. If you got $50 to blow and want to make a near easy grand almost, that's the way to play it. But I'm ready to probably place my $50 bet in the next day or two on that one. So.
I just lined them up in order of conferences. I didn't go 1 through 8, but I just, Yeah.
No, I know Mike will be interested in this because I think Mike might be a betting man. So
I think San Antonio has while they have an uphill climb, being the unfortunate team on the short end of the stick with respect to home games. I think if they can even just run the table and get back to the playoffs again this season, it will speak volumes to their grit and determination working with the schedule they have, because that's by no means a cakewalk. Having so many road games to kick off the season, that would be hard for any team to go through. That's almost a gauntlet.
I think Arlington is tremendous value. Looking at how many points that they scored last season, and they're consistent. All they got to do is just, be on the right side of the scoreboard here. And that's it, and I think that is great value there. Obviously Michigan, but, if I like the long shots here, like having the plus over 1,000, that's kind of like my speed here. Try to find the most bang for your buck. How to make the best use of that $5, So I think, someone who likes to wager that way, I think Arlington is a great pick. What can you buy anymore in this day and age for $5? Look at these value who knows, maybe Houston can figure something out, change, maybe they, with Tom Cable, it's like, what, let's be a ground and pound team. You got Reuben Foster at linebacker, so you can definitely turn this thing around, run the ball and play defense.
They've got Reuben Foster at middle linebacker. Also, they just signed ex-Houston Roughneck Chris Odom, which was USFL Defensive Player of the Year one year. and he's playing end at Arlington as well. So and they just re-signed Sal Cannella yesterday. Arlington, you need to watch out for Arlington this upcoming season.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I'm telling you, these 4th and 12s, like no lead, I think I think that's what I think too, and no lead is safe. And I'm not going back to the rules too. I know Brett's kind of chimed in on this too. The coaches wanted they wanted to see the extra point kick come back. I think there was a majority of the coaches that were exploring that because even I've seen an interview with Daryl Johnson. Getting some 7s back on the scoreboard. Going down. Say you had a 12-play drive, and you only come up with 6. Me as a fan of football, I think it's exciting to have the 2-point play at the 1. I do like to see, for the numbers, I like to see 7 to 14, stuff like that, versus up at the 13 to 6. It's I'd rather see 7-14, but maybe next year we'll see how this goes, how people like it. But at any rate, I think it's still going to be a good product. No lead's going to be safe in this by any stretch. So you're going to have to watch these things. You're going to be biting your nails if you have a lead till that clock hits 0.
So, KJ, I don't want to hold you up any longer. Sure appreciate you coming on. And as the matchups warrant, just like I told Jeremy, we'd like to bring you back on and talk shop once the season gets going. So really do appreciate you coming on. Why don't you take a few minutes and tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, as y'all can see down below, other way, KJ Disciple P. It's my Facebook profile. It's where I do the most engagement, I would say, day to day. But I also do have a Twitter page at the exact same handle. Working on trying to eclipse the big 100 follower mark. I think I'm only 13 away right now, which will allow me to do live videos. For those who don't know, I do a short little 15-minute video series weekly right now called Fun Day Friday. Just kind of goes through very quick snippet general sports update of whatever current sports are active and relative during that time of the year, along with kind of viral talk or trending talk and a bold prediction that I come up with every week that we track through the course of the year and the season. So been exciting to go through some of the training camp developments, and I'll be carrying that through every week going forward. But yeah, the 100 follow mark's a big kind of next goal milestone for my page. I would say getting there, can have more of those episodes be live videos and have direct engagement with you, the fans, which is obviously my number one desire. So I just want to bolster our team support as well as the support for the league as a whole, of course. If anybody can attest to it, I'm sure Brett can, other people as well. But I did a video just the other day in my workplace. I don't even have a schedule for the Roughnecks posted because I know I'm the only Houston fan who works in my company's office. But I do have a Stallions and a Memphis Showboats schedule on our fridge in the break room because I know we're basically equal stones throw away from both places. And I definitely will intend to do my part for both those teams here more locally than I can. But yeah, just here to support the team and the league as we continue to drive through. This is a critical year too, I would say. My kind of PSA for the fans who don't realize it or may dismiss it as, the biggest thing I would say to note is that we're not talking about your clothing brand. We're not talking about your favorite soda. We're not talking about your favorite television show. Okay. All these things are ones that, yeah, for the most part, you can sit back on your laurels, let it develop on its own, and it will die or live based on that and nothing else. And let the general marketplace run its toll. While that, in a sense, is true with this too, as it is another business, I think a sports league in general is much more grandiose, much more organic. It has so many more moving parts and direct people involved than your other, generic product or business does. And I say all that to say that while, yeah, in a perfect world, maybe the responsibility shouldn't fall on us, the fans. If there's any business or product out there in which I would want to have a driven passion to take action and actually start a movement and do something for, it would be sports and most notably football. So I say all that to encourage people. For those who don't know, who maybe aren't a Houston Roughnecks fan, anybody who knows anything about our spring league and pre-merger, this brand, as I sit here, this brand was on the verge of dying. Whether you hate it or love it, over 1,000 people put together a petition and a poll in a similar grassroots movements, and change was affected. Change was caused, and the powers that be made a change in choice in terms of what team they kept in that kind of number 8 spot in our league. So if that doesn't prove to you that we're not just talking grandiose things that are unobtainable or unreachable here, but they're actually real, and with a little bit of grunt and effort and grit, we can actually make and enforce change as a fan base in this league, I don't know what does, because that's the perfect example. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it was going to be. I mean, if he hadn't done that, would we still see the Houston Gamblers, on as part in the USFL conference? So kudos to you guys for doing that. It's rough drill baby drill here on out. So you guys keep doing your thing down there to keep growing the fan base. It's going to be exciting to watch. Keep believing, keep the optimism high. I know people like with CJ Johnson, they look at the numbers, they look at the win-loss total, but he's a wide receiver coach at heart. We have a coach on our staff who's very close with Coach Johnson, and he's our wide receiver coach too. So just keep the optimism high. He brought in Tom Cable, NFL guy. So let's see. Let's give it a shot here. Root for the wins, and then after we'll make adjustments accordingly after the season. But hey, we're on the 2025. Make a run at this thing.
So KJ Brock's extending an invitation to you for tailgating and flying your colors. So when you guys go to Birmingham this year, you're gonna have to make sure to take him up on that offer.
KJ. Real quick, Ed, I sent a couple emails to the league when all that was going down, to everyone I could find an email, and it got back to some of the USFL fans, and they were not happy about it because I was basically choosing the XFL brand over the USFL brand. But it got out because there was a couple guys that read it, what I said verbatim. So you guys wasn't on your own. I was trying to help out there.
Appreciate it.
Well, take care, KJ. Thanks again for joining us, and thank you to Jeremy as well. We'll be talking to him during the season as well. But thanks again, KJ.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Man.
So that wraps up the first two teams for the UFL. It's kind of hard to do game previews this early, especially when you don't know how the roster is going to end up with. But with limited time and 8 teams, you have to get started. So that's kind of the way it goes sometimes. But
Houston's going to have, with against the Battlehawks, that's going to be a great test because how does let's see how the offensive coordinator change for St. Louis starts. Could that be because these early games can go. NFL, we've seen it. We talk about like winning in September. Like isn't always like the grandest of games, because that's when you want to win in December. But with spring football, I mean, it's win now. Like you got to be playoff mode from the jump. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that opening game and how hey, training camp's coming. And I've seen coaches say, like Skip Holtz was at a podium or at a press conference and said the depth players of all these teams are improved across the league. So it's going to be the talent gap. I think it's going to be that much closer, and it's going to be fun to see how this plays out. If you're a team like Michigan or Birmingham, some of the favorites have kind of a rough year. Who's going to be the favorite that maybe not? Is there a favorite that that doesn't muster up to the expectation of the season? So that's going to be interesting. Who's going to be the one that kind of spoils it? So I hope it's not Michigan. I think this is our season. So
week one's always a measuring stick, that's for sure. So Brett, you want to give a shout out to some pages before we call it a night?
Yeah, again, thank everyone for allowing us to continue to post our content. UFL America, XFL Conference, the United Football League fans, UFL Addiction, all the team pages. We can't thank you enough. And we're excited. I think players report tomorrow. Camp starts Monday. Season's just, Friday will be 28 days away.
if you get an opportunity, please go to our page and like and follow. Again, we're making a slow transition probably to YouTube. Very happy with the first week with the subscribers on YouTube going up like they have. So continue to
thank you
to follow, and if there's nothing else, it looks like next week is going to be DC and Arlington. So until next Wednesday, have a good weekend, everybody. We will see you again 8 p.m. Central next Wednesday. So long.